there, and welcome to LoveBombed. This is the podcast where we talk about the things people don't always warn you about, like intense beginnings, mixed signals, emotional confusion, attachment, healing, and learning the difference between attention and intention. Because sometimes the hardest relationships to recover from are the ones that felt real in the beginning. If you've ever been in a relationship that started off feeling almost too perfect and then slowly left you emotionally confused, this podcast is for you. So whether you're healing, questioning things, missing someone, or finally starting to see the situation clearly, you're not alone. I'm Jen, and this is Love Bombed. Before we get into today's episode, I want to say this clearly. I'm not a therapist, and I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I'm here to talk honestly about patterns, red flags, emotional confusion, and the healing that happens after a relationship makes you question yourself. So if you've ever thought, was it real? Was I imagining things? Did I miss something? You're in the right place. Okay, let's talk about the part nobody warns you about. Have you ever met someone who came into your life and made you feel like you were finally chosen? Like suddenly you were being seen? The texts were nonstop. The attention felt intoxicating. The chemistry was intense. And the connection felt effortless. And honestly, it didn't feel manipulative. It felt as if it was meant to be. That's what makes love bombing so confusing. Because in the beginning, it feels so intentional. It feels like finally finding the kind of connection you've been praying for. And when you've spent a long time feeling disappointed, lonely, emotionally neglected, divorced, hurt, or just tired of always being the strong one, that kind of attention can feel healing. You think, finally, someone who values me, someone who sees me. That's what makes experiences like this so confusing. Because in the beginning, nothing felt fake. Sometimes it wasn't consistency, it was temporary intensity disguised as intention. And I think that's why so many people miss the red flags at first. Not because they're weak, not because they're naive, but because emotional intensity can feel a lot like emotional safety in the beginning, especially when someone is so intentional at first that you stop questioning things and start trusting the feeling. And the confusing part is the change usually happens slowly, not all at once. Little by little, the energy shifts, the consistency changes, and you start feeling anxious without fully understanding why. And because it happens gradually, you don't immediately think something's wrong. You think maybe you're overthinking. Even your friends and family tell you you're overthinking things. Maybe you're expecting too much. Maybe you're just needing to be more patient. Sometimes they move too fast, and part of you notices it immediately. You even bring attention to it. But the reassurance feels so convincing that you slowly stop trusting your own instincts. Maybe you just need to be more patient. Maybe they say intense things too soon. Maybe they talk about the future before they've shown consistency in the present, but you call it romantic. And honestly, I get it. Because when somebody makes you feel emotionally chosen, you don't want to slow it down. You want to believe it. And sometimes the beginning really does feel genuine. That's what makes the emotional shift so confusing later. Because eventually something changes. The texts slow down, the effort changes, the energy feels different, and suddenly you go from feeling secure to feeling anxious. You start wondering, did I do something wrong? Am I asking for too much? Am I too emotional? Am I expecting too much consistency? Meanwhile, all you really wanted was stability. And I think this is the moment where people start emotionally abandoning themselves. At first, they text good morning, they call at night, they remember details, they make you feel like you matter. Then slowly, things change. The good morning texts aren't as consistent, the calls get shorter, the energy feels inconsistent. You start feeling like you're reaching more, trying harder. This energy shift makes you overthink everything. You start trying to act less needy, less emotional, less affected. And what's painful is when they finally give you one little moment of attention again, you feel relieved. Not fully happy, just relieved. And that's usually the moment the dynamic starts affecting you emotionally. Because somewhere along the way, your nervous system stopped feeling safe in the relationship. And that changes you. You start over analyzing response times, reading into tone changes, feeling relief over basic communication. Not because you're needy, but because your body is responding to inconsistency. And when emotional security starts disappearing, your nervous system notices before your mind fully catches up. You're no longer relaxing into love. You're recovering from emotional withdrawal every time they come back. And that's why inconsistency can become so emotionally confusing because the relief starts feeling like connection, even when the relationship itself no longer feels emotionally safe. And I think a lot of people listening to this already know exactly what that feeling feels like. Now, when we talk about people who get love bombed, it's important to understand something. They usually are not weak people. A lot of the time, they're caring, emotionally available, hopeful, empathetic, loyal. They give people the benefit of the doubt. They see potential. They over explain behavior instead of pulling away. And a lot of them keep waiting for the version of the person they met in the beginning to come back. On the other side of it, love bombing itself usually looks like emotional intensity happening very quickly. Excessive texting, constant communication, over the top compliments, fast attachment, future faking. They say things like, I've never felt this way before. You're my person. When I saw you, I knew you were the one. I'm going to spend the rest of my life with you. Rushing emotional intimacy. And again, I want to be clear. Not every person who's excited about you is love bombing you. Healthy interest can feel exciting. It can feel intentional. It can feel emotionally safe. But healthy relationships still respect pace. It doesn't pressure intimacy. It doesn't create a fantasy future before there's emotional foundation. Healthy relationships grow steadily. Love bombing explodes fast. And I think one of the hardest parts about all of this is realizing that sometimes the thing you miss the most is not even the person, it's the feeling. The feeling of being chosen, the feeling of being wanted, the feeling of finally believing maybe this time would be different. The healing starts when you stop chasing the beginning version of someone and start paying attention to the consistency of who they actually are. If this episode resonated with you, I want you to know you're not imagining things. Love bombing creates emotional confusion for a reason. But here's what I'm learning: confusion is not security, intensity is not consistency, and healthy relationships should not leave you constantly questioning where you stand. Remember that. I'm going to say it again. Healthy relationships should not leave you constantly questioning where you stand. You are not too much for wanting consistency. You are not needy for wanting effort. And attention without consistency is not the same thing as love. Thank you for listening to Love Bombed. And remember, attention isn't intention. If you want to share your love bomb story anonymously, you can send it to lovebombedpod@gmail.com or just use the link in the show notes below. In the next episode, we're talking about what happens after the intensity starts changing. When the consistency fades, the reassurance becomes harder to reach, and the relationship suddenly starts feeling different than it did at the beginning. Sometimes the most confusing part isn't the ending, it's the shift. I'm Jen from LoveBombed, and I'll see you in the next episode.